Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Tribe TV. My name is Bernard Alvarez and this is a project that I am working on with Roxy Lopez. Tribe TV is a monthly broadcast, hopefully to share with you information and educate the public to some of the truth that we all need to be aware of, and bring some awareness and education on certain issues like the issue that we're going to be covering today, which will be GMO and genetically modified organisms. We are hoping that many of you that are watching will take the time to ask us some questions. We have a lot of information prepared for you, and this is a 60-minute show, so we'll have plenty of time to take some of your questions, and we're looking forward to hopefully educating you on what genetically modified organisms are, understanding where they came from, how they came about, the politics behind it, the corporate, well, for lack of a better term, takeover of our food on a global scale, which is very important, and some of the health problems that are associated with genetically modified organisms. But before we get started, let me go ahead and introduce you to our co-host, and she will be our number one resource today for genetically modified organisms. Let me welcome Miss Roxy Lopez. Hello, Roxy. How are you today?
Great. Thanks so much for doing the show. I really appreciate it. It's a very important issue. And, in today's segment, what we're going to be able to do, hopefully, and of course get to a question and answer, and hopefully you and I answer those questions for people. Number one is we're going to educate people today briefly on what a GMO is and what the difference between GMOs and genetically engineered foods are. Two, we're going to show why it's so important to sign up in your local cities, and we're going to show you how to do that with propositions that are in some of the states right now for FDA labeling, and I'll tell you why the sequence is set up like that. Instead of why aren't we just banning it? Why aren't we going straight to banning it? Because there is a sequence to this. And then third, some of the ailments that are caused, alarming ailments for humans and pets, and for those of you who grow your own food or have farm animals, we can help you out a little bit with that. And hopefully at that point, we have given you some guidelines on what you're looking at, why you shouldn't be eating it, what you can do to help, and that will be mission accomplished.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Absolutely. Well, first of all, Roxy, I've been doing, of course, I've been doing some research and some notes and whatnot. And from what I understand, I don't know how far back in the history of GMO, but if I'm not mistaken, the GMO process started quite a while ago. I think it was in let me be very specific here. It started actually, it started in 1946. Now that is quite a long time ago that they discovered that they can transfer DNA between organisms. That's pretty scary. So they've had all of this time now to develop, what, for lack of a better term, what I would call frankenfood. Some of the combinations that we're hearing between animal and vegetable and just it just sounds very science fiction-y, and I don't think people really understand the depth of mixing of genes that is going on. I don't think they really understand that GMOs have been on their plate for the last 10 years without them knowing it. And I also feel that a lot of people don't understand some of the health risks that are a concern. Have you, I know we talked a little bit about what we were going to talk about today, but did you happen to speak to anybody, or have you had any guests on that talked a little bit about the history of GMO, as far as like all this time they've had to develop it and some of the things that they've come up with?
Yes. It is a biotechnology, a GMO, which is genetically modified organisms. And yes, we've had many people on the show talking about genetically modified organisms and what they do. They're the result of a laboratory process of taking genes from one species and inserting them into another in an attempt to obtain a desired trait or characteristic. So the process is called either genetic engineering, which is GEs, or genetic modification. Um, uh, they they're one and the same. Okay.
Yeah.
And what is a gene? Every plant and animal has is made of cells, each of which has a center called a nucleus, and inside of every nucleus there are strings of DNA. Short sequences of DNA are called genes, and these genes operate in complex networks. Okay, so what we have here is how is genetic engineering done in order to breach these natural barriers and make possible the introduction of DNA from one species to another? Genetic engineers have to find ways to force the DNA from one organism into another. And these methods include using viruses or bacteria to infect animal and plant cells with new DNA, coating DNA into tiny metal pellets, and firing it with a special gun into cells. Now, you can find all of this information on a wonderful website that I highly recommend all of you to take a look at, which is called responsibletechnology.org. They really have done their homework on this. They're one of many. Another one that I will recommend a little bit later, and why, is Farm Wars with Barbara Peterson. Barbara Peterson really has a handle on what has been happening with the GMOs, with the GM, with the GE. Okay. So we don't want to get too scientific. You all can do your homework on this if you need to validate in any way, shape, or form what GMs are or what genetically modified foods are, when they were introduced, etc. There is a genetic engineering enterprise, if you will. And a lot of you have mentioned Monsanto and other companies. I don't want to focus too much on these companies because there is more than one. There's been many combinations engineered with genes taken back bacteria, viruses, insects, animals, even humans. And what some of the things that scientists have worked on in interesting combinations are, for instance, and I think I spoke about this one time on a show, but the spider gene. So the spider genes were inserted into the goat, okay, DNA, in hopes that the goat milk would contain spider web protein for use in bulletproof vests. Okay, this is how crazy this all is, okay? So we're going to introduce, and by the way, the mission has been accomplished. There are now called spider goats. They look just like goats, they act just like goats, and they just like goats. But or that was a sheep. Anyway, so you get the point. But their milk produces, because the spiderweb gene was introduced in their milk, the web protein is used for bulletproof vests. Now, who thought of this, and why are they making bulletproof vests? Huh? What are we talking about? Right. It is very sci-fi, by the way. I agree with you. Cow genes turned pig skins into cow hides. Jellyfish genes lit up pigs' noses in the dark. Arctic fish genes gave tomatoes and strawberries tolerance to frost. Yeah. And the list goes on and on. In Hawaii, my hometown, sugarcane engineered with human genes at the Hawaii Agriculture Research Center. What? Yeah, sugarcane engineered with human genes? What are we doing?
All right. Very good question.
Okay.
If I can just take a moment real quick, Roxy, I just want to let our viewers know that the chat, in order for us to be able to see you chat, you have to use the live stream chat, not the GIC chat, not the Facebook or Twitter chat. Please click on the live stream tab, or you can go to the GIC.org, and you can the chat box is just beneath the player. I just want to let everybody know which chat to go to. Anyway, we do already have some people on the chat, and they're saying we look really good.
Well, so do all of you. I'm so glad you're here.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, the next stage of this, and, you know, because we have such limited time, look, we've already almost killed 15 minutes of this show. So let's race on to give people what they came here for, and to hopefully inspire others to really spread the word. Again, what are the problems created through genetic engineered food and crops? Genetic engineers continually encounter unintended side effects. Now listen, people, this is experimental, and it has been, as Bernard, as you said, it's experimental. So we don't know the massive side effects. I will say that there is quite a list that is associated with GMOs. And I am one who has experienced in my own household the side effects, and I'll get into that if I have time. But there are rising and alarming rates of asthma, allergies, autoimmune system disorders and deficiencies, autism, birth defects, cancer, not to mention obesity, heart disease, diabetes, dementia. And
those are the medical repercussions. We haven't even gone into the social ramifications of how it's affecting farmers.
That's right. That's exactly right. And GM plants create toxins. A good point that you just made. The farmers, and they react to weather differently. They contain too much or too little nutrients. They become deceased or they malfunction and die. This is the crops. When foreign genes are inserted, dormant genes may be activated or the functioning of genes altered. I mean, this is really out there. Here's the deal that I don't like, and I'll be very straightforward with all of you. They don't have our permission to put all this junk and poison into our food chain. We, the people, need to say, hey, I don't want this in my food. All right. Now, there's a very interesting story of a woman who did that. She went to her local big, and I won't mention the chain, grocery store, went all the way to the top. And all the way to the top of that store did not know how dangerous GMOs were. And she educated the individual. Now, look, we can all do the same. You can also go to your local grocery store, whichever one you shop at. Okay, I'm going to get into more solutions later because I'm still trying to introduce the dangers of this, right? That's what Bernard and I are setting out to do here. So, but there are many things that you can do, one person at a time. Various feeding studies in animals have resulted in potentially precancerous cell growth. Now, let me tell you about that. That's also happening in humans. Have you ever heard of irritable bowel disorder?
Oh, yes.
Okay. It's been cropping up, people. An irritable bowel disorder is nothing short of exactly what that statement said, resulting in potentially precancerous cell growth, damaged immune system, smaller brains, livers, testicles. It goes on and on. But what happens with IBD, in brief, is that the GMOs literally cause pre-cells of cancer in the intestines. It also pokes holes in the intestines. So if you have a pet or a farm animal who is showing signs, and here are the signs: vomiting and diarrhea. And I don't mean wait 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, if your pet is vomiting and having diarrhea today, you need to take them in to an IBD veterinarian specialist. Now, let me tell you what the specialists are covering up. They immediately take your pet off of GMOs, but they don't tell it to you like that. What they do is they immediately switch your animal's food to either venison, rabbit, or duck that major corporations are selling, like Science Diet. And it's a prescription food, and it's very expensive. And what I want to say to you is that in the short run, please do it. My animal has gone through the same thing. Lost a lot of weight very quickly. The first sign that he had IBD was the very first 2 hours of him throwing up and having diarrhea. We went through extensive testing first and then ended up at a specialist. Don't do what I did. Go straight to a specialist. Yes, it's going to cost a little bit of money. If these animals are your kids, you're going to want to go to a specialist right away. They'll be able to zoom in on the problem. For humans, the same thing. Because doctors, there are over 1,100 doctors in this country that are so baffled by IBD that in the last 2 years, one of the first things that they're doing is they are taking their patients off of all GMO foods. All right. So this is why it's very important to understand. We all hear about, oh, chemtrails cause this and fluoride causes that. Let me tell you something. This is something you don't have to guess. You don't have to back engineer this. You don't even have to second guess that GMOs are lethal.
Yeah.
Right?
We have our first question, actually from Anela. Hi, Anela.
Mahalo for the question, Anela. Aloha, dear.
She is asking, is GMO food currently labeled as such in the United States or in the UK?
Well, the UK has done some astounding work with propositions. In the United States, I will say yes, there are foods that are labeled. It's basically genetically modified corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup in your canned goods. You want to stay away from all canned goods. They don't say GMO on them, but genetically modified corn syrup is a GMO. It's a GMO. And 88% of the corn that is grown in the United States of America is genetically modified. I bet you didn't know that. And 95% of U.S. sugar beet crops, 95% in the U.S., GMO. And what's beet crop? What's sugar? Okay, so GM products sit on U.S. Grocery stores. Over 30,000 products are in your grocery stores.
Absolutely. If I may, let me just go down the list a little bit to make to create some awareness of what's going on in your grocery store.
Great.
According to Wikipedia, 93% of the soybeans sold in the United States are genetically modified. 86% of corn, 93% of cottonseed and cottonseed oil. 80% of Hawaiian papaya. That is very sad to hear.
I know, it's so sad.
93% of canola rapeseed oil. 95% of sugar beet, as Roxy was saying. The good news is only 13% of zucchini and squash are genetically modified. So that's a good thing. Now I will say this: on a global level, 77% of soybeans are genetically modified. That's a lot on a global scale. And for those of us who are touching on the vegetarian diet or vegan, we need to be very aware that a lot of soy products are part of the vegan diet, and 77 are genetically modified. So, give and take, how healthy is it, to not eat? I would rather eat organically grass-fed beef than 77% of soybean. I mean, I'm just saying. I am a vegetarian right now, by the way, but I will say it's something to be aware of. We have to be aware that this is happening globally. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with everybody. I think that was a very important thing to bring up.
And you might want to ask, how did this come to be? Well, before in the U.S., before the FDA decided to allow GMs into the food, GM foods in without labeling, the FDA scientists had repeatedly warned that GM foods can create unpredictable, hard to detect side effects, including allergies, toxins, new diseases, nutritional problems. They urged long-term safety studies, but were ignored. Okay, that's interesting. They were ignored. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine pushed, that's the AAEM, pushed the FDA. Mm-hmm. Okay, to do long-term study, because already in clinical studies, several animals indicated serious health risks associated with GM food, including infertility. That's a good one. Infertility, immune problems, accelerated aging, faulty insulin regulation. Folks, that's your thyroid and diabetes.
Yeah. And if I may just put a footnote, they're genetically modified insulin medicine out there as well, which is not a good thing.
That's right. That's exactly right.
They're creating genetically modified pharma now.
Right. It's just out of control. Yeah. And, since the release of GMs, thousands of sheep, buffalo, and goats in India died after grazing on Bt cotton plants. Mice eating GM corn for long term had fewer and smaller babies. So you see, there is a an effect of reproduction. Loss of reproduction,
Absolutely.
or completely. More than half the babies of mother rats who were fed GM soy died within 3 weeks. The lists go on and on and on. So people, you need to educate yourself. Cooked GM soy contains just as much as 7 times the amount of known soy allergens. There are studies out now too as well, and this is actually coming through mainstream news. Small children are pouring into doctors' offices now with what they call food allergies. These are not food allergies. These are GMO food allergies. Yeah. There's a big difference. But again, when mainstream releases it, they don't even mention GMO. They just say food allergies.
That's very true. And you know what? You're bringing up something that's very important, that there is so much, I don't want to say secrecy, but let's say power behind the genetically modified market, for lack of a better term. I mean, we look at what's happening with Vermont. They're being sued now because they want a label. I think that's Monsanto is doing a suit against Vermont.
That's right.
We had just recently, we had the American Medical Association saying there's no reason to label genetically modified organism. Why in the world would our American Medical Association think that it's okay not to label something that's been genetically modified with human, animal, or plant genes thrown into some kind of a scientific lab experiment and being fed to the public? And not acknowledging, like you said, not acknowledging that many of these food allergies are related to GM consumption. And I mean, it just goes on and on. It's completely out of control as far as our government is concerned. It will never be regulated in the way that the government is being run right now, sadly.
No, and you're right, because everybody's working for everybody, and lobbyists and corporations and so forth and so forth. But there's good news. There's definitely going to be some good news on this show. But Bernard, did you realize that there are no human clinical trials of GM foods?
Oh, I never knew that. No.
Yeah.
I had absolutely no idea.
Evaluations for drugs, they have to do human studies.
Absolutely.
So why aren't we doing human studies? This means that long after we stop eating GM foods, we may still have GM proteins produced continuously inside of us. See, because this is an ongoing thing. And there's also, I'd like to point people to read some information on the antibiotic side of this and the mixture with GM crops with antibiotics. And by the way, what is the first thing they put my cat on? What is the first thing they do in a human? It goes into a doctor, and they're having these symptoms and signs and so forth of irritable bowel, etc.
Yeah.
They put them on antibiotics, which is another lethal trait to the gene of the GM. See, it's unbelievable. It actually, the Bt toxin. Let's just stop for a moment. I'm getting carried away. It's not good for us. It causes liver and kidney disease. The meats, I mean, we just saw a report, Bernard, on, people thought, okay, well, if I buy, meat that is grass-fed, I'm okay, because we thought that. And then now we're finding farmers feeding cows GMO grass.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So where do people turn? Where do people turn? And, look, it's not just the genetically modified organism aspect of this. It's also these terminator seeds that are, kill the bugs, right? Kill the insect. That's right. But what's happening is, what is Mother Nature doing, people? Mother Nature is saying, well, we need to have more babies. We need to have so the insects are beefing up and just taking over. The root insects in the crops have tripled and quadrupled, so they've become immune. And so what does Monsanto want to do now? Billions of dollars a day in this country alone. Did you realize this? Billions of dollars a day that Monsanto spends to come up with new fab ways for these seeds.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money. So they need to make their money back, folks. And that's why they're trying to do things like sue the state of Vermont, for wanting food labeling. And let me tell you on what, Bernard, what you had mentioned a little earlier about the AMA and the FDA all in cahoots, and in California saying that there's no reason to put labeling on food. And they actually quoted themselves by saying, the board of directors of the AMA said, if we label GMO foods, it will only serve to confuse the public. Huh?
Typical Orwellian dialect.
Stop
Typical.
me. I can't even and it's like the common sense. I mean, is this desperate? So, you know, if you're living in California, get behind Prop 37, people, and get behind 19 other states that are and Connecticut and Vermont, you're correct. Monsanto tried to sue both states. And this is hideous at this point. This is so obvious. They're absolutely desperate, see, as to clinging. And by the way, millions of acres of crops are dying this year all over the world because of the GMOs,
Absolutely.
because the bugs beefed up and killed the crops, killed them anyway. And you may want to know, and even in our country, don't get mixed up by different news. In the middle of our country, where most of the agriculture is, we're having severe droughts. As a matter of fact, they're calling it the most severe drought in 50 years. And of course, you know, I don't know if you know, I think you do, Bernard, that, you know, Monsanto came up with a hefty little seed that's drought tolerant.
Oh, lovely.
But they came up with that a couple of years ago when they're, you know, now there's severe drought, especially in the panhandle of Texas, severe drought in all of those crops in the panhandle. And what's happened? What do you think's happening? Now listen what's going on in California. Up north, in Northern California, I have a report from Deborah Tavares from Stop the Crime. She gave me a report that, went up and saw this for herself. On I-10, the freeway, there are huge signs on the sides of the roads where all the farmers are. So they decided to stop and do an investigation. That's Deborah Tavares. And what the signs say is, help us, please help us. They've cut our water. Well, at first she thought maybe the drought, but it wasn't even just that. Not only are they droughting farmlands through geoengineering, weather modification programs, not only are they doing that, this is our U.S. government and these secret governments and secret agendas. Not only are they doing that, when Deborah Tavares went in to do the interview for all the farm owners there, they cut their water off from the city. Not for not paying a bill, not for using the excuse that they're in a drought, so you can't have as much water. Who ever heard of this when you're commercial agriculture? You know, smaller commercial agriculture, not giant commercial agriculture.
Right. Well, ConAgra would never have to worry about not having enough water.
And in some of the cases, you know, 30, 40 acres are now reduced to that farmer is only growing on 1 acre because that's all he has the money for, and moved his farm animals onto that 1 acre.
You know, you're bringing up a very important topic that I think that we need to touch on at this point, and that is the controlling of the entire food system, of the seed. Let's face it, everything comes from seed. Let's face it. And from what I understand, and I'm sure Roxy has done the research and she understands it as well, it seems that companies like Monsanto and Monsanto are doing their best to, to patent everything, patent every seed, patent every bit of food source. We're looking at small farmers, like Roxy said. Small farmers are losing their farms because A, they can't afford these what do they call them? The self-destruct seed, or I forgot what it is, but the Terminator seed. Thank you. We're seeing farmers in India who are using the BT cotton, and just recently a report came out that up to 250,000 farmers in India have committed suicide. Why have they committed suicide? Because the crops are failing, the BT cotton crops are failing, and they cannot raise the money to pay off the loans. 250,000 suicides this year, from what I understand. Please make a reference. But it's the numbers are extraordinary. This is a global, horrible mistake. And then if we look at, excuse me, if we look at how this ties into some of the other things that we talk about, like the spraying of aluminum through chemtrails, like Codex Alimentarius, where they have made the food code so difficult for the small farmer, the small business to actually go past that threshold to sell commercially. It just seems that it seems nothing. It's very obvious that 4 or 5 corporations want to own the entire food supply.
Absolutely. And that is power, that is control. We have control of the weather, artificial food. We have control of the water. There's water grabs, etc. That's just a story for another day. Yeah. Bernard, I just gave you a very important PDF file in your Skype chat.
Yes.
If you could drop that into the show's chat, people keep this document. It really gives the A, B's, and C's of what happened and how it happened. I do find it. Here's the red, the big red flag. They won't put money into testing humans for what happened.
Yeah.
Or what is happening, or GMOs, or genetic. Why? They are not going to until we make them, is what it is. And listen, the Food and Drug Administration has labeled GMs. They have genetically recognized as safe, and it's called GRAS. So if you see GRAS on something, that means that the FDA labeled genetically modified foods as generally recognized as safe. And that is the status that allows a product to be commercialized without any additional testing. Okay.
And if let me extend that a little bit. If they test, they're going to test it their own way, and then they're going to put out a public statement saying that it's okay. And what I mean by that is, as I said, I was just recently watching a video with what's the doctor that we're sharing today, Jeff Smith.
Oh yes, absolutely, Jeffrey Smith. Yes,
Smith. He was
from Responsible Technology. Yes,
he was talking about how they were doing tests on homogenized milk, and how the FDA or whoever was concerned about all the GM aspects of it, or I guess the harmful chemical that was in there from the GM aspect of it. And they didn't like the first test. So what they did was they did another test to the milk, added like powdered milk to it, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, there was less risk, there was less toxin in it, so it's okay. And that's the test they give out to the public.
Yes.
So we have to really remember that even though they might be testing, or they could be saying this and they could be saying that, these laboratory tests are not privately done. They're done publicly or through corporations, and we really need to question anything that comes from a large entity like the FDA or a large company like Monsanto, because they're going to pay people off and they're going to manipulate the test to give the desired result. And I think pretty much all of our viewers kind of understand that's really what's happening. They will manipulate the test to give the desired result.
Well, and see, just so people understand, well, people might say, well, how come I don't have any side effects, or I'm not having any of this list of, injury, or whatever to my body. I'm not having IBD. I'm not having, depression. I'm not having fibromyalgia or whatever. Because this has been a slow process. You see, this has been a process, but, what is it? Farmers are now using more toxic herbicides than ever such as the 2,4-D, and go ahead and look up 2-4-D, which increased by 237% from 2004 to 2006. So where are we now? You know, that's these are more and more and more pesticides and insecticides as well. And then you've got this in the seed. Now, the genetically modified seed, one of them, how it works is basically when the insect eats of the plant, it sort of explodes their stomach. But you see, it's happening slower in bigger animals and humans. These are tiny insects. So what that is being transferred to us, hence holes in the intestines of animals, holes in the intestines of humans, not being able to process your food nutritionally, hence the weight loss. So there are people who are eating and eating and eating, and animals as well, and farm animals, and then it's just coming right out back out the other end, or vomiting. So now the nutritional level goes way down and these diseases start cropping up. Now listen, you don't want to wait until you get IBD. You don't want to wait for that critical moment. Once you're diagnosed with something like IBD, now you need to live with it because there is no cure.
Yep.
But an interesting aspect of this as a solution, I've been working with Dr. Spencer, Will Spencer, and we're doing quite a bit of series on what and how to get better. So if you want to go and take a look, I'll put an article together with all of these websites for everybody too, Bernard, and give it to you to put on the GIC.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so that we can, people can, find these things. But it's nutritionally based. And what's missing in our food is real simple. Certain proteins, enzymes, over 80 of them, by the way, over 160 vitamins and minerals are missing from our food. And enzymes that are very important for breaking down food in the intestines, large and small, and probiotics and prebiotics. And that's why you're starting to see more and more commercials about somebody who has a thick tummy and then go get Activia.
Yeah.
People, that's not it.
And it doesn't have enough in it at all.
That's not a live probiotic anyway.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So you want to get live probiotics, prebiotics to prevent, and you want to change your lifestyle. By the way, this is very inexpensive to do. I have a question for you, Bernard, being that you've gone vegan, what is it, 18 days?
Vegetarian, 19 days, yeah.
Vegetarian, thank you, 19 days. I was almost there. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
Are you spending more or less money on your food?
I would say less. I would say less. However, I will say that since I've changed my diet, I've had to replenish my refrigerator. So I had to buy a lot. But I will say on item per item, everything is either equal or less to replace. Absolutely.
And can you
especially when you're eating lettuce and carrots and corn and non-GMO corn. Even the non-GMO corn at the farmer's market is cheaper than buying canned corn. I mean, it's just amazing.
I agree with you. Tomatoes, everything. It's less expensive. And so are you buying most of your produce or all of your produce from a local farmer's market?
I'm buying a majority of my produce from a local farmer's market. And then, of course, I'm buying my vegan type stuff over at the supermarket. And it's still not very expensive.
Okay. I agree. I do the same thing. All I would advise everybody regarding farmers markets, especially those of you who live in small rural communities where there's local farmers and such, always ask, whether it's farmers market or not, ask them if they're certified organic. If they can't produce certified organic, I did catch somebody here, unfortunately, in Casa Grande, Arizona, at a farmer's market who could not provide me any proof that they were organic.
Right. I will say another way that I've been noticing as well, and most of them do have the little organic symbol on their little stand or something like that. But the other thing that I've been able to tell now that I'm doing this is you're noticing the tomatoes are not on steroids, the green peppers are not on steroids. They're
They're
actually
not big and
they're
giant.
not big, giant, juicy, and plump and
That's the
perfect.
first sign,
They are
huh?
imperfect. They're deformed. It's kind of like I remember shopping in the 70s and 80s. It was like a pepper was, 3 or 4 inches, not 8 inches. I mean, you can kind of eye it. You really can kind of eye it. If the color's too perfect, if the size is too enormous, that it's probably been genetically modified. So that's very helpful also.
Absolutely. But see, that's just one of the ways, for those who are listening, how do you know the difference? And the other way is simply look at if you must buy canned goods, and this is, people, you need to understand something. This is a process that if you're willing to go through, it's going to be a process. You're
Yeah.
not going to overnight,
No.
especially in this economy, you're not going to go to open up your pantry and just throw everything
Right.
out.
And
You know,
refill it in one day, though.
right. Go ahead and continue what you're doing with what you've already purchased for you and your family, or if you live alone, etc. Go ahead and try to just not buy any more of it if you can, and start to supplement, okay, with farmers market. Go down there at lunch break or what have you and purchase some things, or right after work, or your local farmers that are not using pesticides and these seeds, Monsanto seeds. Do a little homework in your local communities. If you live in the cities, in bigger cities, go online, and there are two different things. And by the way, take down this website, people, responsibletechnology.com. I'm giving them a lot of credit for what they have done.
Okay.
This is Jeffrey Smith's website.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay. Go to that website and look for your local, not Facebook group, local face-to-face groups of individuals that are in your city that you can walk in and get pamphlets and helpful education on where to buy your food, or if you need to know a doctor to go to because you are not doing very well, you're not feeling well, whatever it is. They also provide much information, people, with a proposition that's going on in that city that you can sign up and get copies, or go in front of a grocery store. You can become a part of the solution. And you can also know that even if you're not sick or not having any side effects, and your pets are fine and your children are fine, the biggest thing that you're doing is, beyond these health implications, Jeffrey Smith stresses that these genetically modified seeds have begun to contaminate the larger agriculture infrastructure on the entire planet. This is pollution. This is contamination.
Contamination,
So
exactly.
even if you're not ill, get involved in that. This needs to stop. And Anella had asked earlier for GM in the UK. I do know that many parts of Europe have succeeded with labeling.
Yes.
And so has Japan. Did you know what they did in Japan? I got this report from somebody last evening. In Japan, the farmers were so angry that they waited till nighttime and all went out there in droves with their families and stomped on the crops so they wouldn't grow. That's how
Wonderful.
much they didn't want GMOs. So if you don't want and that's those who own the crops are field workers. What are you going to do about that when people start destroying their own crops because they're poisonous?
Right.
So remember, this is a global issue, but you can do something locally. And that's what we really want everyone to participate in, whether it's joining a GMO local group. All right. You also need to know, that there are foods, and there are lists of foods that you need to take a look at, so that you know which foods are
Right.
best for you and which foods are that you should absolutely avoid. Okay, so you also want to do that. We'll put a link to that in the article as well.
Yeah.
You can go to Green America, there's quite a few websites that have Green America and their allies call for labels on GM foods. So you want to get behind these types of groups. Again, you can find this all on Responsible Technology's website, which is fabulous. It's all there. But if you want to know, I'm going to put a few of these websites, I'm going to give them to Bernard right now, so that I have some reading material for everybody too. So if you are a book reader, you like to read books and things, you can read a couple of books. But there's I just gave it to you, Bernard, the non-GMO shopping guide. And then there's the book, The Seeds of Deception. And that's a great read. It kind of lays out what happened, when it happened, and why, what you can do. Again, all of Jeffrey Smith's stuff, what I love about it, and I'll give you the Seeds of Deception as well book. There's also another book called Genetic Roulette. Another great book, The Documented Health Risks of Genetically Modified Foods. If for those of you, again, who like to read, go ahead and order these books. What I like about Jeffrey Smith is he always gives you a solution along with the problem, and that's why I'm supporting his work. You must not get into fear-mongering and all this drama. I mean, really, the drama is disinfo. We are all been a part of it at one time or another on a social media thread.
Oh yeah,
disinformation, and I'm done with that. Anything that I have made a mistake in the past with, I am happy to correct, because I'm not. I just you're like that too, Bernard. You're very responsible in your education.
We have to cross-examine everything and really cross-reference everything. We do have a question. I can't see. Where do we go? I lost the question. Well, I remember the question, but I lost who posted it, so I apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Nilda is asking, what can we do to stop them? And I think that's kind of easy to do if we allow ourselves to, let's say, work on working on labeling genetically modified foods. You can see how very, very much afraid these companies are of labeling the food, because they know the moment that the consumers have the education, the consumers have that little thing that says GMO food, people are going to be like, I don't want to buy this. Look, we did it with pink slime a couple months ago. We're doing it with the human growth hormone, with the milk. Consumers are not stupid once they have been educated. So if we want to stop genetically modified farming and genetically modified seeds and all of these things, and by the way, speaking of genetically modified, I just saw something here that I remembered I wanted to mention. About the cows. There are scientists that are breeding cows that are genetically engineered with human DNA to produce human breast milk. I mean, that's pretty nasty. I'm sorry, that's unnatural. I'm all for technology, I'm all for science, but that is disgusting. And we need, and how do you know you're not drinking cow's milk that's human breast milk? How do you know? Because it's not labeled. So to answer your question, Nilda, if we can get these people, or get the grocery stores, get states to pass laws that this stuff must be labeled, I am sure the lack of consumer participation in eating this stuff will stop it. But we need to get it labeled first and foremost.
Let me let you know something. And to add to what you just said, and absolutely, you are correct, Bernard. One of the best things you can do that you don't have to go anywhere to do it is stop buying it.
That's true.
That's one of the biggest things. And let me tell you, polled nationwide, 52% of Americans say they would not eat GMO foods if they were labeled and they could tell the difference between GMO foods and, normal foods. Mm-hmm. Europe and Japan have rid themselves of GMOs. So the biggest thing that you can do is not buy it. Okay. And again, how do you know what not to buy? Go ahead and download
It's
The
going to take a little work. It's not. You're not
yeah,
going to stroll down the aisle and say, "Oh, that's not genetically." You have to do a little research.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research, and like I said, 30,000 products in your local grocery store contain GMOs.
Yeah.
So you stop buying them. And when you stop buying something, other companies like, say, Pepsi Cola or Dole that have genetically modified corn syrup in their canned goods, once you go to those companies and say, I'm not buying your canned goods, any of your canned goods anymore because you have GMOs in it. Once you go there, what do you think those other companies are going to do that are selling canned tomatoes and canned this and canned that? They're going to stop using GMOs. They're going to find something else to use, in its place. They're going to stop going there. And genetically modified corn syrups. That's what sweetens up anything in a canned good is the genetically modified corn syrup. Stop participating. And what Bernard said, very important. Find out in your state, what proposition is up on the board, because according to Roseboro, 20 states have attempted to pass GM labeling laws in the past year, this year. With the exception of a bill in Alaska calling for labeling on GM fish, none of these bills have passed to date, which he blames on the huge cash infusions that biotech companies spend on lobbying against them. But Jeffrey Smith even said in an interview, I really like this guy. He even said in an interview that there's not enough public awareness.
Yeah.
That's all. More public awareness. Once people say, no, I'm not doing this, they get worried because this is about money, people. Money, 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 money. Because if you get sick, ooh, the other drug dealer,
the other
pharmaceutical,
drug dealer, the other peddler of death.
Now they can give you 4 or 5 drugs for the rest of your life and make a whole lot of money on your IBD, just to name one, or your diabetes.
Well, let me expand what we're talking about here, because so far we're covering the supermarket, but let's go beyond the supermarket. Let's remember the restaurants we eat at. Let's remember the fast food that we go to. Let's remember the popcorn in the movie theater. Most of these are going to be genetically modified organism and have genetically modified organism in it. All of them probably do. Very, very few. There is one restaurant in Roanoke that I know for a fact is non-GMO because it's called Local Roots. And everything is bought within like 5 miles. Everything has to be organically grown. But that's one restaurant. I can bet you that most of the restaurants that I go to have genetically modified meats, or of course they're going to buy the cheapest lettuce and the cheapest corn, and what can they get for for the bottom line. And GMO is cheaper for, I guess, because it's being produced in such abundance. But remember that it's not just your supermarket; it's your restaurant, it's your fast food, it's the movie theater, it's the coffee shop.
And if people want to know, I did see a couple of reports on movie theaters, and it was interesting. And I haven't had the opportunity yet to go deeper into it. But they were saying that popcorn that was used in movie theaters was different popcorn. Now, don't take this as the truth, that it wasn't GM popcorn. But this is what you can do to be responsible. If you like popcorn and you go to the movies, and who doesn't when you go to the movies? It smells so awesome. Ask before you go. Don't do this before the movie while you're ordering the popcorn because nobody knows. But you want to call the manager of that establishment, and you want to ask them where they're getting their popcorn. You want to find out if their popcorn. Now, on the website that I also gave Bernard to put into the chat room, that website also will tell you the names of companies that are doing GMO corn. As we well know, 88% of the corn in the U.S. is GMO. It doesn't mean that every single company or every single popcorn company is using them. But you make a really good point, Bernard, that they're anywhere there's a food source.
Any food source.
And then start patronizing the ones that aren't using GMOs.
Yeah.
That's all. Start giving them your money instead. That's a way more effective way. Then you feel really good. Like you might say, look, I'm not an activist. I can't get out in the streets with my signs and this and that. I work along. Well, then just do these simple measures, because what you are doing goes a long way. Taking
Absolutely.
care of your health so that you don't have to give the pharmaceutical companies money for the rest of your life for
Right.
the 17 drugs for you to stay alive because you have all these diseases. So you're taking them out at the knees, you're taking the GMO companies out at the knees, and you're putting the money in the pockets of those who really need it, who are being just squeezed out of the agriculture industry.
Absolutely. And, we're talking about basically it's called noncompliance. I will not comply. I will not buy your food. And, that's a philosophy. I just want to extend this a little bit, that's a philosophy that I use in most of my activism, whether it be corporate rule, banking, Walmart, any of those things. If you want to take these guys down, you don't give them your money. And it doesn't matter whether it's GMO or Walmart. And yeah, I'm sure Walmart sells GMO, so there you get 2 for 1. So don't buy Walmart food. But the reality of it is that yes, you hit them where it hurts. These are greedy corporations. This is the
Yeah.
reason why they're motivated to want to control the food, why they're doing all these scientific research. And I wish we had more time to cover it. Maybe we can do a part 2 next month or something to that effect in the next coming few more shows. However, I want to say that we're missing out on the whole thing with Bill Gates, with Bono, with the vaccines, how they want to give out GMO crops to third world countries in order. Meanwhile, these GMO crops are not as nutritional. So in order to make up for the loss of nutrition, they want to vaccinate everyone. So
It,
you
it,
see what a tangled web it is. It's a
it,
very tangled web.
it truly is, and this is just the beginning. And I hope that we've educated or helped to answer any of the questions that anybody had. Hopefully, the links, I gave you some more links to put in
Okay,
your chat room.
good.
So go ahead and just copy them all and give them to everybody. This is just, it will really help.
Scratching the
I
surface.
I Well, I've chosen the link, the websites and the pieces, the articles that really make sense, easy to read, easy to understand, and perhaps what we can do next time that we come back for Tribe TV is perhaps we should really cover the the health issues and bring in lots of information that we both have for the public, and then the public can start to think about the listeners and watchers right now can start to think about who they know. Bring us your sick and bring us your poor. I mean it. Bring them, because
Absolutely.
we can answer. We're not doctors, but we can answer a lot of the questions. This has become a major concern for me, not even to mention the disease Morgellons. And that's a whole nother issue. And you
Yeah.
know what maybe we can do is maybe spend 15 or 20 minutes next time talking about that Morgellons disease is an inherent disease of GMO, genetically modified organism
That's what
disease
it is.
is
GMOD. You're
Morgellons.
right. Yep. It
So
is.
that's an
That's
extreme.
the
By the way, there's
Frankenstein
proof
of
of
it.
that.
Yep. That's
There's absolute proof of that. So there are ways that we can do it. And then again, as a reminder, get off of all GMOs, people. Stop eating them. That's number one. How do you know? Use the links that we provided with you to find your non-GMO shopping guide and sources. 3, join your local coalition in your state, in your city, in your county. Find the groups that have the information for you so you can start educating those around you, your neighbors, your family, and your public. And if you have a pet who is showing signs of vomiting and diarrhea, please take them to a specialist immediately and take them off of whatever you're feeding, because it's probably got GMOs in it.
probably, yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Roxy. And one last thing I just want to throw out there, a little extra advice, and thank you for all of that, is look for your local co-op. There's a lot of local co-op, whether it be farmers market or grocery store. You can live in a big city and still have gardens. I know in Brooklyn, New
Oh,
York, they have a huge garden co-op going on. I know here in Roanoke, we have a community garden going on. So look for your local community gardens. Look for your local co-ops. These are people that are going to give you the resources, and if they're a co-op in a garden, you'll also get the food as well as the resources. So it's just a matter of changing our habits is really what it comes down to. So you'll have to go to 2 stores instead of 1. Big deal.
Right.
You'll probably save money, and you'll also be a lot
You
healthier.
probably already do go to 2 stores with your coupons.
That's right.
It's no
Exactly.
big. I know I do. I'm like, oh, gotta go
Yeah,
over there.
right?
Gotta go over there. And the other thing is, for those of you who do not know me, my name is Roxy Lopez, and I
Yes.
am with an organization called The Truth Denied. So anybody that doesn't know who I am, that's me, and it's really nice to meet all of you. And of course,
Yes.
I'm
I'm sure everybody already knows who you are from GIC,
I'm a member
Roxy.
of the GIC, a proud member of the GIC. So, this is real tough. Bernard and I are really, really busy.
Yeah.
And so, Bernard, we did it. We finally got another tribe
Yes.
TV down. And so I appreciate it. I thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you
Great,
so much,
great
Roxy. And please remember, everyone, you can find Roxy Lopez at American Freedom Radio on Mondays and Fridays, correct?
Yes, that is correct. 7 to 9 Central.
7 to 9 Central, American Freedom Radio. The name of the show is called The Truth Denied, as well as thetruth.denied.com.
Yes, absolutely. And we
.com.
have the player. For those of you who don't want to download the player still counts for AFR. So it's not like you're, going behind their back.
Right.
It's all linked to them. And
Good.
we have the player right on our website on The Truth Denied. So you just push play at 7 o'clock Central and you will hear me live.
Wonderful. And, of course, I'll be back on Monday on GIC Radio. I don't know if we have a guest this Monday. It might be a consciousness talk. I'm not sure what day of the month it is. It might be that time. But I will say we'll be back here on GIC TV next Thursday with Jeff Harvey. And Jeff Harvey has got some really great alternative healing methods. So we're talking about getting rid of all this GMO stuff. Jeff Harvey might be the guy to help us combat any of the illnesses that might have come along with eating it for so long.
That's excellent.
So he's the guy that you want to talk to as far as alternative healing methods is concerned. Anyway, everyone, please be aware The Truth Denied and the GIC.org does rely on your donations, so please be kind and stop by thetruthDenied.com and the GIC.org and give us a small donation if you can. We really would appreciate it to continue this kind of work. This is what we do. This is our job. So we thank you so much for participating in today's talk. And we'll see you next week here on GIC TV. And remember, you can catch Roxy tomorrow night on American Freedom Radio. Bye-bye, guys. And thank you so much again, Roxy. I love you so much.
I love you
You'll
too.
always be a
Mahalo,
part of the
mahalo.
GIC family, always.
We
Oh,
just
I almost forgot. What am I doing? Before I wrap it up, don't forget, we're having a spiritual activist conference in October. Please be aware. We're down to 50-something spaces left. So you can find that also at thegic.org. Just click on the groups, and within groups there is a link. Oh, and there's also a Facebook event on it. But we've invited Roxy Lopez to join us, Miriam Delicado. So you'll be able to meet everybody live. Wouldn't that be nice? And yes, donate to Roxy because she needs the plane fare.
I do. We haven't, we've been so busy and doing so much work, and I'm being just honest with you. We haven't had any donations since like January.
Oh,
and
my.
I'm trying to raise money for other people too, and other people, dog rescues and this and that. And then I'm thinking, God, I haven't received. We had a few donations when our webmaster had a baby.
Oh, that's nice.
About a month and a half. I asked, please send, donations. So all the donations that we did get, I'm sorry, I should acknowledge that, went to the baby for his birth of his new child. So, but I need a plane ticket. So if anybody wants to help me get a plane ticket to go to
or Sky Miles.
Is this awful? I'm being called all over the country, and I
that's okay. I have to go.
Plane tickets.
And don't worry, I'm going to Arizona the month after, and I still don't know how I'm getting there. So.
Well, you're better be staying with me.
I hope so. That would be great. That would be
okay,
great.
cool.
But yes, we do conferences. We want to travel, and we need to get Roxy to Roanoke, Virginia. So please, give her the donation. Don't give GIC.org. We'll do it. We'll give GIC.org, but give her.
Well, I was going to say,
it.
if they give you a donation in my name, are you really going to give it to me?
Oh, of course. If there's a little note that says Roxy, I'll do it. Anyway, we're goofing off that. But we're serious. We are being serious. We're looking forward to the conference.
Big hugs, big peace, big love.
One
Big
love.
mahalo. Thank you.
We love you guys. Thank you very, very much. And I will see you next week here on GIC TV. One love, everybody. Bye bye.